Hello, everyone. Let's get the meeting started. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the Toronto Centre Recreational Astronomy Night Meeting for July. My name is Paul Markov. I'll be your host this evening, introducing the speakers. And hello to our YouTube viewers. Tonight, we have 4 speakers instead of the usual 3 because some of these presentations are going to be slightly shorter, so I didn't want to send you home too early. We have the sky this month, as usual, starting first, presented by Andy Beaton, followed by Frank Dempsey, who will talk to us about Oumuamua and implications for the origin of life on Earth. Ron Macnaughton will follow with Dance of the Red Planet. And finally, we have the Nath family. And they'll talk to us about modeling the deep sky network from Earth to outer space. So I think we're all set to go. Do we have any new members or people here for the first time? Show of hands, please. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you at future meetings. And I'll pass it over to Andy for the sky this month.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I got the instructions on how to do this and promptly forgot them.
Okay, and then go F5. F5. Once it's loaded. One more. Okay.
Hi. Before I start, I'd like to point out this excellent fashionable shirt I'm wearing, available from John up there at the back after the meeting for a modest sum. You can be guaranteed to be the coolest kid on the block. So here we go for the sky this month. What we have on the agenda tonight, the big picture, the planets, the moon, emission nebula, because I like talking about deep sky stuff, comets and meteors, obviously a variable star. Blake isn't here. So I'm just going to delete that entire double star for Blake's slide. And whatever's coming up in spaceflight for the next month. So the big picture, here we go. This is what the sky looks like tonight, more or less at sunset. We've got a parade of planets heading off to the horizon there. Venus, Jupiter, the moon, obviously. Ceres, if you've got a good pair of binoculars or a small telescope. We can see Ursa Major and Bootes sliding down into dusk. There we go. Okay, here we go. Venus, the moon, Jupiter. We can see Scorpius down there in the south. If we stay up all night and see what we can see in the morning, then we've got more planets. We've got Saturn, Mars, Neptune, Uranus. We've got Sagittarius and all the rest of our ecliptic constellations coming along there. We're past the summer solstice, so the nights are getting a bit longer. It's bad news for days at the beach, but good news for us. We get to get a bit more astronomy in at night. This week, twilight's finishing pretty close to 11 and starting up just a bit after 3 in the morning. So, you know, a solid 4 hours of observing. By the next meeting, it'll be an hour earlier in the evening and just about an hour later in the morning. So get up to 6 hours of observing then. Important dates coming up. The new moon on August 11th. Also notice right there, beside the new moon, we also have the Perseid meteors coming on August 13th, nice and close together. There's an eclipse of the moon coming up on July 27th. As usual for these things, it's on the wrong side of the Earth. But since we're being broadcast over the internet here, I'm going to point it out anyway. It's possible some of our viewers somewhere are going to be in position to see it, or some of us will be traveling and be able to get a glimpse of it. July 27th, the moon is as far away as it's going to get, as close again on August 10th. Because we have new people here, I'll point out what I always point out. It's a fun project to take a picture of the moon at both of these times, and then compare the size of the two. You can see how much closer and further away the moon gets. July 31st, Mars will be at its closest. August 11th, we get another partial solar eclipse. And once again, this year being what it is, it's nowhere around here. But if you're traveling, it'd be a thing worth looking for. I wouldn't travel to see it, but if you're there, worth having a look for it. And now that we're in the middle of the summer, now is when all the big star parties come along. I know Starfest up at Mount Forest is the big one around here, but there's a lot of other ones, mostly listed in the back of your Observer's Handbook. If you want to have a look there, I recommend everybody go to at least one star party in their life. It's a worthwhile experience. So the moon, first quarter in a couple days. Full moon, July 27th, good time to get out of town, do something else. Last quarter, August 4th, and the new moon, August 11th. And that's going to be a big one because of the meteor shower at the same time. The next lunar X will be 2:15 a.m. on July 20th. I debated whether or not to include this slide or not, because everybody who's seen my presentation before has seen it, but fortunately we have some new people here. So the lunar X is a feature. It's an intersection between a couple of craters on the moon. And when the time and the light is exactly right, you get this cool X showing up. Now, scientifically, it's not particularly interesting, but it's a really cool thing to see. And it's also, a good incentive to get out with your binoculars or your telescope and actually go out there and take a look and try and find something while it's happening. And as long as you're out there, there are a million other things to see in the night sky. So the planets, we've got Mercury and Venus just after sunset. Right now, Mercury is it's very close to setting after the sun. It is still feasible to see it. You need a good horizon. You need good seeing. Hopefully no clouds, but it can be glimpsed with the naked eye if you're very lucky. Venus, you can't miss it. It's the bright thing in the western sky. You'll look to the west and you'll say, that's got to be Venus, and you'll be right. It's no mistaking it for anything else. Look at it with a small telescope and you'll see it's a half Venus. It looks like a half moon, only it's a planet. And over the next month, it will be growing bigger as it approaches us. In the morning, we get a big show of Mars, Neptune, and Uranus. Mars is at its biggest since 2003. I don't know if anybody remembers how impressive it was then. It wasn't really as big as the full moon, but it was a big thing in the telescope. The July 31st, the disk is going to be 24 and a bit arc seconds across, which is pretty big. You'll want a telescope to see it, of course, but any kind of telescope, in theory, you should be able to see some features, some of the big dark markings, the polar caps. In practice, I was looking at Mars last weekend, and it was just a big dusty mess. It's a giant dust storm season on Mars right now. Hopefully, the dust storms will pass sometime before this great viewing opportunity goes past us. But you know, our hobby being what it is, no guarantees. Now, as well as looking for all the features on Mars, I know everyone's going to be complaining because they're not going to see anything through the dust. There is also the option of looking for the Mars moons, Phobos and Deimos. Somebody on the mailing list got a photo of it a couple weeks ago and posted it on Facebook, and I don't remember who it was now, and I'm sorry about that, but it was a pretty impressive achievement. They'd seen it visually by getting an eyepiece with an occulting bar through the middle to block out the light of Mars. You can also do it by setting up your telescope beside a building or a post or something that's going to block the light of Mars. And if you're careful, you'll get one of the moons creeping out before Mars shows up in your viewfinder. I haven't done it myself. It's on my list of things. It hasn't worked any time I've tried it, but other people have succeeded, so it is a doable thing. So in the middle of the night, we've got the big planets, Saturn, Jupiter. Jupiter's the really amazing thing to look at after sunset. It's pretty close. We've got the great red spot there. Now, last year, I was reading that the great red spot may be disappearing forever, and I was suggesting that people, keep an eye on it. This could be a scientifically interesting thing. Now, last time I was looking, which was last weekend, the red spot was redder and more obvious than I'd seen it in years. So, scientific predictions are not always what they're cracked up to be. In any case, I would say, get out there and look for it. If you're lucky, you'll see a prominent red spot, which is always interesting. And if you see it fading away, then you'll be answering that interesting scientific question. Saturn is rising in the evening. It's always a good show. The rings are not open at the maximum, but they're good and wide open. And there are lots of moons around it you can see and identify with any kind of planetarium software. Titan is obvious. It's the big moon, but there's at least half a dozen others that can be seen with a modest telescope. Pluto, I know it's not a planet, is in Sagittarius, and that makes it really tough to find. I don't think I'd even attempt to do it visually. There are so many small stars which are easily confused with Pluto, but it would be an interesting photographic target, especially if you can get multiple nights of observation, so you can compare one night to the next and see how see if you can spot it moving. Ceres, it's close to Venus around now. It's not really much to look at, except for the fact that it is a dwarf planet that you can see and knock it off your checklist. Sadly, all these objects are pretty low towards the horizon from where we live, so they're not going to be amazing photographic targets. But they should be at least interesting visual ones. And yes, it can be done. Mercury is the tricky one. I saw it last weekend at the CAO, and after that, it's just a matter of staying up till 2 or 2:30 in the morning. A pair of binoculars is all you need. Remember to look down and count the Earth. And after Mercury, they're all pretty easy. Well, I just angered somebody. Let's see. Oh, shift it. Okay, we're back. So, I always like to suggest some deep sky stuff for people to look at, since we have some new people here. They may not have seen these guys. Emission nebula are the clouds of gas in space that glow red as they're illuminated by stars within them. M8 and M20 in Sagittarius. The North America Nebula in Cygnus is good. You can see that with binoculars. I probably saw it 50 times before I realized what I was looking at. I thought it was just unclean optics, but it turned out I'd been seeing it. M17, the Swan Nebula or the Omega Nebula, looks more like a duck to me. These are all good targets for binoculars or small telescopes. They're not great for looking at in the city, but if you have any kind of nebula filter, that will help out. My best advice is get out to a star party, even one of the small ones we have here at Bayview Village Park. Unless you're the guy who brings the biggest telescope, you can always borrow a bigger one and have a look at it, which makes it worth the effort to go out. My favorite summer deep sky object is the Trifid Nebula. It's one I always go to whenever I'm out observing. It's a good one because you can check off most of your list at once. It's an emission nebula, a reflection nebula, dark nebula, and a star cluster all rolled into one object. If you're having a look at it and you've got a nebula filter, you can try with and without and see which part of the object appears and disappears to tell you which is glowing and which has just got light bouncing off it. The dark nebula is Barnard 85, the kind of propeller-shaped thing in the middle there. And if you're interested in crossing things off in your observer's handbook, that's on the list of dark nebula included in the deep sky section. So, comets and meteors. Obviously, the big one is the Perseids peaking on the morning of August 13th. And this year, it is perfectly set for the new moon. So we're going to see all of them. Everything down to anything the human eye can see, we'll be seeing. Which probably means we'll be seeing clouds, but that's what our hobby is all about. It's an excellent question. Sunday night, Monday morning? Okay. We can all take Monday off work, call in sick, right? I will. We also have the South Delta Aquarids around July 29th, but it's a much less interesting shower. It's around the full moon. I would say it's probably a good target to try picking up with a radio, looking for reflections off the ionosphere. But I'm not sure I'm going to bother heading out in the night to try and see that one. I've got a couple of good comets coming up. 21P Jacobini-Zinner. Right now it's in Cepheus. I think it's about 12th magnitude, but they're promising as it gets close to the sun, it could reach naked eye brightness, maybe. C2017 S3 Pan-STARRS right now is about 10th magnitude in Camelopardalis. It's predicted to have a maximum of around 7.5 in late August. And as always with comets, no promises. If we're lucky, we'll get a big outburst and it'll be even better. If history is a guide, it'll be worse. I kind of feel that when I'm telling you about comets, I should be wearing a mask or something so that as I'm being recorded here, no one's going to hold this against me in a month's time when they've fizzled out. Now, we can't go a month without a variable star. Ci Cygni is one I've been working on. It's a Z Andromedae type symbiotic variable. What that means is we have a red giant and a small main sequence star, which may have an accretion disk around it orbiting each other. It's also possible that the red giant is so big that the small star is actually orbiting within its atmosphere at times. So every now and then, every couple years, this one goes from about 12th magnitude to 10th magnitude or even brighter. The interesting thing about it is it happens very fast, which means the automated telescopes aren't necessarily going to catch it during the interesting outburst phase, which makes it a good target for amateur observers like you and I. So I would go to the AAVSO website, aavso.org, track down this star, sign up as an observer, print out some charts, and keep an eye out for it. This is useful science that amateurs like us can do. Yeah. Usually it's around 12th to 13th magnitude when it's not an outburst.
You said it happens very fast.
It happens fast. It can go from quiescence to full outburst in under 12 hours. So that's too fast for the programs that take a picture every day or every 3 days. That will depend on us. Now, I know Blake's not here, but you're going to get an interesting double star anyway on his behalf.
He's watching.
Is he watching? Okay. There you go, Blake. I didn't forget you. One I picked this time is Tau Cygni, a 3.8 and 6.6 magnitude pair. The small one's actually pretty much like the Sun. The other's obviously a much bigger giant. These ones are very close, less than 1 arcsecond separation. So you need a 5-inch or better telescope, you need good seeing, you need to clean your eyepieces before you set up. But the interesting thing about these guys is the period, 49.6 years. That means within a month or two, you'll be able to actually see motion. You'll see it move a few degrees around its orbit. So if you're looking for real fast action in the night sky, this is the double star for you. So spaceflight coming up. Falcon launches. Okay, I gotta admit, I don't watch the launches anymore for the launches. They're getting boring for me. I don't watch unless they're going to guarantee an attempt to land the booster. I still think that's cool. So I've pointed out the scheduled Falcon launches coming up. The Parker Solar Probe is due for launch. It's actually going to pass through the outer atmosphere of the Sun. So that's going to be some cool science. So keep an eye out for that one. From now to August 11th, the ISS is going to be passing over every night. Heavensabove.com for actual time and location. Because it's so close, it's going to depend on where you are, so I'm not going to predict anything here. And the other big spaceflight news is the James Webb Telescope has been delayed till 2021. So hopefully they can keep the Hubble flying for just a bit longer. And that's what we have. Have any questions? Any questions, corrections? Okay. Good. Thanks very much.
Great job, Andy. Thank you very much once again. I know it takes quite a bit of time to prepare those presentations. Okay, so we're going to do a reboot here of a computer. Do we have a quick announcement that we can make while the machine restarts? Yes, come on down, John. That's you're gonna have to use the microphone.